Dear listeners, we tell ourselves stories about the things that we save, about the rescue dog we who needed us, the relationship that shaped us, the moment everything changed, right? But what happens when we stop asking who saved whom? That's a good question, right? So, what if the story we have been telling ourselves is only the half of what's true? So, today we are looking at the kinds of bonds that don't fit nearly into before and the after, the love that asks more of us than we thought we had to give. Yeah. I'm your host, Avik, and you are listening to Mind Myths Machine, where we slow down enough to notice what we usually rush past. And joining me today is a very lovely guest. Please welcome Holly B. Gutwillinger. Swearing to the show.
Thank you very much, Avik. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Holly, for being here. And dear listeners, before we get into the discussion, I'll quickly look to introduce you, Holly. So she is an author and podcaster whose debut novel explores the tangled, beautiful complexity of a woman's relationship with her rescue dogs. So I do not want to take much time. Let's get started because we have a very good discussions and in the next 30 minutes. So just relax and let's have a conversation. Yeah. So
I already
Holly,
feel relaxed because just listening to you speak is very relaxing and calming.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. And so, I think that a lot of us carry this idea that rescue is kind of a one-way street, that we are the ones doing the saving thing. So, what do you think is the biggest misconception here that people have about what it means or what it actually means to bring a rescue animal into your life? It could be any animal.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a multifaceted concept in a sense because we are throwing around the word rescue so loosely now. And it's almost like a badge of honor for some people. And I'm not taking away from how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is that people adopt animals. We'll just generalize, but it's the way that we're so quick to call them rescues. And I've done it as well. And so I think that it's just my thoughts are evolving from the word rescue to acceptance and thinking about how I may have adopted these two dogs. I mean, rescued, yes, I suppose, from a life otherwise maybe not so great, but in essence, like the dogs have really accepted me for who I am by coming into the home, and I had to in turn accept them. So I think, and I am guilty of this, is just trying to fix the dogs. And that was my initial thinking when I first started writing this book, was I was just trying to fix my dogs. And I realized that I couldn't fix them. I just needed to meet them where they were, because that's basically what they have done with me for our entire existence together. And they're almost 13 years old, give or take. So I think that people need to realize that it's not so much about rescuing, but including them into your home, your family, and what is your goal with this relationship? Because people do have different goals when it comes to rescuing dogs, especially.
When did you first notice that shift in your own life, that moment when you realized the dynamic was different than you expected?
When my dog was bouncing towards me and his ears were just hopping up and down and his tail was wagging. And I realized in that moment that he was trying to communicate to me that he was okay, even though he's carried some burdens with him. I just needed to accept where he came from, who he was, and that we were going to be okay together. And I feel like he was just trying to communicate that because he doesn't approach me that way on a regular basis. He doesn't approach anyone that way. And that's when it shifted for me. And I thought, okay, I'm listening. And I started writing, and just that whole acceptance started to resonate more. And as I accepted that, then our relationship changed from between human and dogs.
And it is really interesting, how we frame these relationships from the start, and we call it a rescue, but maybe that word sets up an expectation that someone is broken and someone is whole, when really both are just the beginning. So yeah, it's really interesting. So, and you mentioned about the novel, right? So in your novel, you explore this idea of the complex relationship. And so what do you think sits beneath that complexity? Like, what are the deeper patterns kind of play when we attach so deeply to the animals in our lives?
Well, I think as humans, we want to fix everything. And so, even with the main character in the book, she went on this one day rescue mission with the shelter. And I don't think she really knew what she was getting herself into, as most of us don't when we adopt the dogs or any animal that has a past, an unknown past. It could be abandonment, it could be abuse. And so I think that we attach our own thought patterns to what we think they need, and then we call it rescuing. And so we're rescuing them from a situation without really considering what's ahead and without knowing what their past was. So I think that if people, because it's exciting to get a dog
Mm,
or a cat or a bunny, anything, right? We want that, we want to nurture something. And so I think that if people really slowed down and thought about what they were about to enter into with this relationship, I don't know, maybe people would reconsider their positions and really assess their situation at home to know whether or not they can accommodate an animal with great needs.
So if we talk about our daily life, right? I mean, so before daily life also, I'd love to ask, like, do you think that we sometimes use those relationships to work through things that we are not ready to face with people?
If we use relationships with the animals,
Yeah, I mean, with animals, and I mean, in general, I'm saying.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that especially with animals, we tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? We put far more emphasis on our own issues and we don't separate the animal from who we are as a human. So sometimes those animals take on our burdens as well. And that can also translate into our human relationships. Sometimes the animals take a little bit more than what they should. Well, a lot more, right? I have seen animals in very precarious situations, but I think our relationships with animals are very different from humans. But if we treated some humans like we do animals, there's the opposite. The humans would be better off as well because we do tend to treat dogs in a different way. Especially now, I've seen a real shift in the way that humans are treating dogs and cats as pets, and they're more members of the family. And so they should be. But we're dressing them, we're having them groomed, they have weekly appointments. So
Right,
it's a
right.
very different dynamic now as well.
I mean, obviously, there's something about the way animals hold space for us. So without the language, without judgment, maybe the silence becomes the kind of safe space. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. And if I could add this, Avik, I went to the post office at lunch and I was standing behind a woman and a small child. And the little small child had no words yet. She might have been under 2. She kept turning around and waving at me. And so I would wave and we'd play this game. And then she'd turn to the left and wave, turn to the right. And she kept doing this. And then
Okay.
I started hopping to see if she would follow. And then she was
Hmm.
throwing me kisses. And her
Okay.
mother is busy at the counter. And I didn't want to come off as
Hmm.
but I was having this communication with this small human, and it was one of the most
Yeah.
beautiful moments I have had in such a long time with a human because her mom turned to look at me and smiled. And I said, "Oh, we're communicating without words." And she goes, "And you're keeping her busy. Thank you." So the mom was grateful, but
Yeah.
the little girl was just, it's like we had a full conversation in 1 minute without
Yeah.
words. So
Exactly.
it was just beautiful. I just had to share that.
No, that is really lovely. And it shows the innocence, and it shows that without having words also we can express our feelings. We can express the communication. So
Mhm.
that is really lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really great.
Thanks.
And so suppose for someone who is listening right now, who lives with the animals or who's considering it, like how does this dynamic you are describing actually show up day to day? Not a kind of dramatic moments, but in the ordinary life. What is it?
So, like, what are you asking? If how for people who have animals as right now,
Yeah, yeah, right now. Yeah.
and like,
How
can
does
you
this,
repeat the
I
question?
mean, how does it show up in their daily life?
That's a good question. You've got me there. I mean, I can speak to how it shows up with my dogs and cat and my many before them. It's always evolving. It's always changing, and you learn from that physical communication, like the way that they gesture, the way they use their paws, their tails, their body. I've really slowed everything down to observe what they are trying to communicate. And it's not that dogs are so eager to communicate specifically to a human. That's just who they are. It's just their way of living. But in listening and watching with our eyes, our mind, like with the full senses, we can really establish a completely different level with our pets, and which can in turn give you peace and comfort and joy and acceptance. Don't know that I really answered your question there, but
I mean, yeah, I mean that also helps. Obviously, it also helps. And
yeah.
I mean, what do those small moments reveal? I mean, if you can share, like what we really asking of ourselves.
Those small moments reveal not only the human's character, but the animal's character, the needs.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need that quiet space. And like you said before, the animals or the dogs, I'll use the dogs in this case, they always provide that. Well, except for Cash, because he is quite rambunctious. And
Yeah.
sometimes I need to provide him with the quiet space because he doesn't know how to slow down. His brain is always moving. And so there's this reciprocal relationship where sometimes I need to assess my dogs and see what they need. And maybe it's not, going to the person on the street and having them pet them. Like, as their guardian, I need to watch out for their best interest as well, as they do for the human, because they tend to protect us.
Exactly. And also, if you talk about because you are also the mother of two adult
Yes.
sons, and you are completing an MFA,
Yes.
so you are podcasting. So I mean, life doesn't pause while we are figuring out those stuffs out. So how do you handle the days when you feel like you are falling at all of it, when the love you have doesn't feel like it's enough?
I could have given you a completely different answer about 10 years ago, but today I sit with it. I can recognize it. I have done a lot of self work. And so I learned to recognize what's happening for me. I have very good awareness, not only of my own space, but of the space for people around me. And when I need to retreat because everything is just so much and I'm trying to balance all of the things, even though that's kind of how I thrive, but there are days when I get overwhelmed still, but I know that it's okay and I just need to sit with it. And sometimes I even wallow in my own self pity for a short time. But it's a phrase that I've repeated to myself over the years. You can wallow in your own self pity or your frustration, but you need to step out of it. And that's the key. So that's
That's
how
interesting.
I balance it and deal with it.
That's interesting. So,
Mhm.
and obviously, like, and if you have, like, what helps you to come back to yourself when that happens?
Creativity, definitely. And so that could be painting. Yesterday, a friend of mine gave me a whole bunch of watercolor paper, different brands, different styles. And old me would have been very meticulous in planning out what I was going to put on each piece of paper. And if it didn't work out, I've become very frustrated, probably thrown it out. But instead, I opened up the watercolor paints and I just let it happen. I let the colors kind of talk to me and I thought, oh, okay, it's a blue moment. So fine. And I just kept working through like that. And I even caught myself afterwards when I was all done and I had gone through this blissful moment of me creating. I was judging myself again. I thought,
Like,
this
how
is
it's possible?
ugly. Yeah. And how it was supposed to be. And I was like, nope, you are not doing that. You are here for fun. And it's just gentle reminders, and I do have an inner critic and I have a name for her. She's called Rebel Betty. And so when she pops in, I'm like, hang on. So I have a chat with her and then we keep going about our day.
Okay, lovely. So, if you have to give one advice to the listeners today, what will it give?
Find joy in the things that you're doing. And I know that sounds cheesy. It's something that we're throwing around so much, but I do come back to it. Use whatever word you need to find peace, joy, happiness, content, satisfaction, but take on as many things as you want to. I have been told that I take on far too many things, but I only have limited time on this earth and I want to try it all. And so it's a matter of narrowing down what brings you joy, happiness, satisfaction, And for me, that's creativity, whether that's in writing or just playing, dabbling in paint, pencil, crayons. It doesn't have to be artistically inclined. It can be anything. It could be rearranging your furniture. But find joy in those moments. And I know that's easy for listeners to sit there and go, or find joy in everything. And you won't always, but eventually, when you get to be my age, you will.
True.
Yeah. Just takes
So
time.
exactly, it takes
Yeah.
time. Definitely,
Yeah.
it takes time. And also, like, dear listeners, like, the animals we love don't ask us to be perfect; they ask us to be present. So it is something I thought I'd share. So yeah. So if listeners wants to connect with you, how they can connect?
I'm on a lot of social platforms. Instagram is my favorite. It's my go-to. I'm at Rambling from the Little Shed. And I'm on TikTok. I'm trying my luck out there, but it's a difficult
Okay.
platform to break into. But Facebook, and then of course my website, ramblingsfromthelittleshed.com, and my podcast, which is called, believe it or not, Ramblings from the Little Shed.
Okay.
There's a theme.
Okay. Okay.
So you just type in Ramblings from the Little Shed and I'll likely pop up.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, you do not have to think much. I'll share all the links, details, everything into the show notes so that it'll be easier for you to just click and go to her website. And thank you, Holly, for sharing these perspectives, the great examples that you have shared, and also about the incident for the morning and that you shared about the little child. So it is really really helpful. And so before we go, dear listeners, like, I definitely want to leave you with this: that the relationship that change us most are not always the ones that we have planned. So sometimes they are, I'd say, the ones that found us when we were not looking, the ones that taught us how to stay when everything in us wanted to rest. Just think about it. And maybe that's the real story, not the rescue, but when what happens after, in the long run, quite years of learning to let something matter. That is something. That is something what I thought I'll share. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. If you are listening right now, maybe we'll listen later as well. For listening to Mind Meets Machine. This is your host Avik, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.